Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good evening to all my students, and I hope you all are fine and you are enjoying physics with me and with your colleagues and your teachers in your respective schools. Dear students, today I am going to discuss two SLOs with you. Two SLOs or two topics. So SLO 1.3.1, differentiate between base and derived physical quantities, and SLO 1.3.2, list the 7 units of System International, along with them symbols and physical quantities. Standard definition of SI unit are not required, so the standard definition of SI units are not required for Khan University Examination Board syllabus and for the assessment. Now by the end of this lesson you will be able to differentiate between base and derived physical quantities and identify example of base and derived quantities and list the 7 units of System International SI along with their symbols. First of all, before going for the lecture, let me discuss the command words which have been used in the SLO or in the objective. Now these are very important in regard of AKUB syllabus, so you have to know the command words, otherwise you cannot get enough mark in the examination. So those students who are getting these command words easily, or those students who have some idea about these command words, they are able to get maximum marks or good grade in the final exams. So the first command word is differentiate. So this is very important, differentiate. If the question is given that differentiate between base and derived quantity, so that time what you have to do with that question or with that SLO. So differentiate means to find dissimilarity between two or more objects or ideas. So if the question is about differentiate or distinguish, then you have to just find the dissimilarities between the two quantities, between the two objects, between the two ideas, or between any two concepts. So differentiate doesn't mean that you have to write the similarities there, you have to just write dissimilarities there. Okay, then we have identification. So if the SLO is demanding identify, so you have to select the most appropriate object, feature, characteristics from many possibilities. There are huge possibilities in different concepts, among different concepts, so you have to select the most appropriate one. So this is known as identification. And list. So if the question or SLO is asking to list down, so you have to write down information in points. Just write down information but in points. If it is list, then you have to write in points. Here no explanation or sequence is required, so don't go for the explanation here. If it is asking for the list, don't go for the sequence, don't waste your time, just do what I told you. Okay, so list, to write down information in points. Now with respect to these three command words, let me discuss the SLO. So the first SLO was differentiate between base quantities and derived quantities. So base quantities versus derived quantities. As we know that base quantities are also known as fundamental quantities. Okay, so base quantities, fundamental quantities or base quantities are those that have no reliance on any other physical quantity for their measurement. But when we are coming for the derived quantities, a derived quantity is the products and or ratios of the fundamental quantities in a system of unit, which means that these quantities can be expressed or can be derived from base quantities. One of the example which is very common in my class, which I am giving to every student related to base quantities and derived quantities that we are taking the example of alphabets. So how to know about base and derived? This example is related to only this question, how to know. If you are talking about alphabets, we have 26 alphabets. So these 26 alphabets, these are the fundamental alphabets, and these alphabets have no reliance on any other words. From A to Z, these are, let's say, these are base. But now if we are taking these alphabets, we can just combine these alphabets and we can get any word. For example, derived, we have combined D, E, R, I, V, E, D. So same is the case with base quantities and derived quantities. So base quantities are the fundamental quantities, but derived quantities are those which have been expressed from base quantities. Okay, so these quantities cannot be reduced any further to their simplest form. So these are already in their simplest form, but in derived quantities they can be reduced to their most basic form, which is made up of fundamental component. So in the metric system or SI system, there are just 7 fundamental or base units, but in the metric system or SI system there are vast number of derived units. As I told you that you can express, you can get as much as derived quantity you need. So example of fundamental quantities are time, length, mass, electric current, temperature, amount of substance, and intensity of light. So these 7 are the base or fundamental quantities, and examples of derived quantities are heat, power, work done, acceleration, force, etc. So in this SLO, which was about base quantities versus derived quantities, means differentiate between base and derived. So I have differentiated in 4 points. Just look here, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So these 4 points of the differentiation are enough to overcome this SLO. Okay, so you can also write other differences between base and derived quantity, but these are the main differences between base and derived quantities. So if you're talking about derived physical quantities, we have force, which just look here, and it has been expressed from mass and acceleration. Force, which means mass is a base quantity. If you are talking about acceleration means unit is meter per second square. So here length and time, so mass, length and time can give us a force. Similarly, pressure, frequency, work, power, electric charge. So these all have been expressed from different base quantities. Okay, so these are the formulas and these are the units, and with the special names I have mentioned here. You can just take a screenshot of this slide and you can just note down this in your fair notebooks. Okay, now system of units. As we have been discussing units, we are just discussing different units, different systems. So what is system of units? A system of units is the complete set of units, both fundamental and derived, for all kind of physical quantities. And the common system of units which is used in mechanics are given below. So we have 4 system of units. Basically we are just discussing these 4: CGS system, FPS system, MKS system, and SI system. So now it is your task that what's the abbreviation of CGS, FPS, MKS, and SI. Okay, so these systems I have just mentioned here, so you can also take the screenshot of these and you can note down this with your people. Now our topic or the main discussion from the previous slide, from the 4 system of unit, this one is very important, SI unit. So as we know that the 11th General Conference of Weights and Measures held in Paris in 1960 adopted the International System of Units, universally abbreviated SI, System International, for the recommended practical system of units of measurement. And the SI defines 7 base units: meter, kilogram, second, Kelvin, ampere, mole, and candela. So according to SI unit, we have 7 base units, and we have expressed several derived units from these base units. So base unit means units used for base quantities are known as base units. So just look at this table. So I have taken this table from your textbook. Quantities are physical quantities, base quantities have been given here, the symbols, their units and abbreviation. Okay, so these are the 7 base quantities along with their unit, abbreviation and symbol. So you can now also discuss derived quantities or derived units. For example, if you are talking about acceleration, force, work, so you can just write their units, their symbol and their abbreviation. They have been also given in your book. You can check from KP textbook or Punjab textbook. Okay, thank you for watching, and this is a very short solo, so I hope you have got the important information related to this slope. Thank you so much for watching.